Okay, thank you. Our next candidates are for the Town of North Hempstead Supervisor. And we have on the stage Judy Bosworth and David Redmond. And Mr. Redmond will begin.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us here tonight. This is very important, and time is a very limited resource for all of us, so thank you for joining us tonight. My name is David Redmond. I was born and raised in Mineola, New York, and you have my bio with you, so you can read that if you'd like. I'd like to thank the League of Women's Voters for hosting this. Very important to have civic involvement and to be informed, properly informed, have the right information. And my grandmother Mary, actually, she turned 94 yesterday. And we celebrated over the weekend. It was very nice. But she's been one of my biggest inspirations in life. My other grandma, June, passed away before I was born, so I never had the opportunity to know her. So I've been very blessed to get to know my grandma so well over these years. And she taught me a lot. She told me stories about how her mother fought for women's suffrage, relatives marched across the Brooklyn Bridge for the right for women to vote. So we can never take our rights for granted, whatever those rights may be. And that does inspire me throughout my life. And thank you for the League of Women Voters for all your issues. You always push for more. It's okay to ask for more and have higher standard, even though our country is far and ahead of many other countries, even still today in the 21st century. So as we help our friends across the world to get their rights up to speed with ours, it's okay to ask for more and keep pushing to have more rights in this country as well. And on that note, I think North Hempstead, we do. We have a good credit rating, and we have a very low fiscal stress rating. But that begs the question, why aren't we getting better results? I think our results are not aligned with the credit rating and the fiscal stress score. So something's missing. There's a component missing to town government, and I think I can fill that gap, fill that void, and get us up to speed. There's been several outstanding issues over the years that they haven't been fully addressed. They haven't been fully solved. It's been very slow. People are not satisfied in many parts of the town. I have a very unique skill set and knowledge base that no one else on the town board currently has. So if you do add me to your town board, I will work with the rest of the board in a bipartisan, friendly manner, and we'll get the job done for you. All right, thank you for the opportunity. I look forward to your questions, and I yield the time to Judy.
Thank you. Ms. Bosworth.
Thank you. Wonderful to be here with all of you, and of course, the League of Women Voters must be getting very tired of being thanked, but thank you for hosting this forum. So I'd just like to tell you a little bit about myself. My parents were Holocaust survivors, and I grew up in a house where my mom was probably the most patriotic woman that I have ever met. And she always used to say to me, "This is such a wonderful country. If it weren't for this country, we wouldn't be alive. And it's your responsibility to give back." And I grew up hearing that again and again. It's your responsibility to give back. And I took that very seriously. And I felt that giving back was an important thing to do, and public service was a great way to do that. I was a New York City school teacher. I was one of those proverbial stay-at-home moms and got very involved in my children's schools. I was a proud member of the Great Neck Board of Education for 16 years. I served on the Nassau County Legislature for 6 years, so I worked with many of the people that you just saw speaking before you. And for the past almost 6 years, I've served as the North Hempstead Town Supervisor. I'm so proud to be doing that. North Hempstead is a great town, and it's a great town because of all the wonderful people that are part of it. We're only as good as the people that we're with, and North Hempstead has an amazing group of varied communities who work very, very hard to make and get things done. I have 30 seconds, so I just want to say that we do have a AAA bond rating. Our fiscal stress is 1.7 as opposed to Nassau and Suffolk counties in the 70s and Oyster Bay at 70. So I've been described as fiscally conservative manager. I'm proud of that, but I'm also proud of all the services that we provide for the residents of the town of North Hempstead, and I'm hoping as the evening goes on, you'll get to hear more about that.
Thank you. Our first question. The town of North Hempstead's residential permitting process is notoriously slow and capricious. What would you do to improve it? And several people have asked questions like this. Ms. Bosworth?
So our building department has made great strides. Is there a way to go? Absolutely. But one of the things that we are dealing with is the fact that sometimes it's not the building department, sometimes it is the Nassau County Department of Health, sometimes it's the Nassau County Fire Marshals. And altogether, when someone's not getting their permits, they're saying it's because of that. We've actually increased the number of permits that we've issued. A few years ago, we were issuing 5,000, and 3 years ago it was 6,000. 2 years ago it was 7,000. Last year we issued 8,000 permits, and we're well on the way to doing that again. We are upgrading our IT in the building department using a group called Citizen Serve, where people will actually be able to get their permits online. We'll be able to check the status of their permits online. We've done a lot to change the culture in the building department. It used to be that if you went into the building department, you weren't greeted with the most cordial greeting. That's not the case now. Everybody, it is very consumer oriented. We are trying to do the very best that we can. I have an applicant advocate, Lauren Suma, so if you're running into a problem and you get in touch with Lauren, she actually will walk you through the process. So there's much to be done, but we've come a long way.
Thank you, Mr. Redmond.
Thank you. So my background is perfect for this problem. I've worked with internet technologies for almost 20 years, and I'm very comfortable with it. It's 2019. I don't understand why this online interface for the building department wasn't implemented much sooner. This would alleviate the traditional methods of going through the building department. So now you have two streams. You have younger people that are more comfortable, and actually, I know many senior citizens that are comfortable using properly designed online forms. So that should have already been done. I can get that up and online faster and make sure the user interface is friendly and efficient. And then that'll free up the more traditional ways people interface with the building department, because there's still a backlog. They've made very minor incremental improvements, but it's a major function of the town. If we have such good financials, that should be priority number one. That affects the economy when it's slow. There's businesses, residents that don't want to deal with town if they can avoid it. And that's not how it should be. And they've had several questions. It's a huge issue. It's been going on for several years, and it's taken too long to solve it. I have the ability and the skill set to help solve that problem and get it done with a sense of urgency. So I will do that. Thank you.
Thank you. What steps are you taking or would you take to protect our town from the impacts of climate change, such as increased flooding, and how would you budget for the needed changes? And we'll start with Mr. Redmond.
Obviously, North Hempstead is not going to solve climate change on its own, but we obviously will take our own personal responsibilities and do those steps. But the big key for the town level is the erosion, because even if we have the excellent environmental policy at every level of government, we're still going to have erosion. That's a natural process, a natural cycle. So those control factors are well established. And as far as budgeting for that solution, we need better project management skills. And we've seen several people have resigned recently, including the public works leader. He resigned just most recently. And if we manage those projects better, it'll free up funding for necessities like erosion control, erosion prevention. And I have that background. I've interfaced with many different companies, and we can get that done. Thank you.
Ms. Bosworth.
So climate change is, of course, something that's on everybody's mind, whether you think that it's happening or not. We are having storms. The 100-year storms seem to be coming very frequently. So whenever we're doing projects now, we have a mind towards making sure that our projects are resilient. One of the things that comes to mind is North Hempstead Beach Park. There's tremendous flooding in the parking lot. So one of the first projects that we're going to be doing, we just went out for an RFP, is to look at that. And instead of fighting with Mother Nature, we're actually going to let the part of it that keeps flooding return to be wetlands, so that we're not doing that constant give and take where we're fighting to make sure that the area isn't getting flooded. So we need to make sure that we are conserving our water, that we have and so many of our water districts are trying to conserve water by cutting down on the amount of water that's used. Irrigation causes a lot of that. One of the things that we are doing now is we're going to have a retention pond with SWAMA, that's our Solid Waste Management Authority, as well as Harbor Links, and that will save actually 35 to 70 million gallons of water a year, because the water that is in the retention pond will then be used to irrigate the golf course. So that will save a lot of water. The other thing that is very, very important is we're fighting desperately to protect our aquifers. Long Island is a sole source aquifer. I have to stop.
Thank you. The town is currently in court with the contractor who made repairs on Clinton G. Martin Park in New Hyde Park. What would you do in the future so that this does not occur with future town projects? Ms. Bosworth?
So because we are in litigation, I can't really comment on Clinton G. Martin Park. We've asked anybody involved with the town not to do that. I can tell you that we've done so many projects that have gone forward successfully. Clinton G. Martin Park did open after one season. We've had now 2 summers of families enjoying it very beautifully. We've done successfully a dog park. We built Petrus Park in Port Washington. There have been so many projects that have gone very, very well. Sometimes there are projects that have difficulties, and we're always looking for better ways of doing that.
Mr. Redmond?
I can speak to that, and I'm going to tell you publicly known information, so I'm not disclosing anything that would affect a lawsuit. That project was managed terribly. They picked the contractor who had previous legal trouble, so just because they were lowest bidder, they did not have to be selected. There was good cause not to select them. Now they're bankrupt, and that's in litigation, which is unfortunate, totally avoidable. So I would change that by having due diligence in finding the proper contractors and making sure if they're lowest bidder, there's not a bad reason why they're the lowest bidder. And with the North Hempstead Beach Park project coming up, we're accepting RFPs until the end of December. This is a critical time to have the right leadership in place to manage that project. If there's mistakes made, they're going to be at a bigger scale, and it's going to cost taxpayers much more money than the pool park project did, which was, they underestimated that. It became a much larger project than they first told people it would cost, and it was managed terribly. There's also a question of whether the contractor in question got even the proper drawings. There's a whole bunch of questions surrounding it. The board wasn't informed through the whole process properly. It's just a complete failure of leadership on that front. I don't understand why it's happening, but I can make a difference. I can change that. I will be a positive influence on the rest of the board and work with them, make sure they understand it. I will understand what the contractors are telling me and screening them properly. I can do that. I have an engineering background, a very technical background. If I'm not the subject matter expert, I will process the information they're giving to me, share it with the rest of the board, make sure we're all on the same page. That's how we have to move going forward. It's the only way to get better local government.
Thank you. What is your vision for future development in North Hempstead? Mr. Redmond?
We have to be open for business and business friendly and be very inviting. Investors can go international if they want to. They don't have to build in North Hempstead. We've had vacancies for over a decade in Great Neck, Mineola, all across the town. Way too much vacancy, much more vacancy than I ever remember seeing as a child growing up here. So it's been an ongoing problem. It's affecting the economy, it's affecting my generation, it's affecting anyone who's invested in properties. And to change that, my vision is to have smart growth, smart development. You don't want to move too fast, but we have to get the ball rolling and be very inviting, like I said. So I can work with the businesses, we'll screen them, make sure they're responsible business owners, we'll make sure they talk to the community and address their concerns properly before the projects are approved. But it's up to them. I want to see what their research was for the specific properties they chose and why, make sure it all pans out. But it's a partnership between government and business. Government can't micromanage everything. We have to screen them for the people and be very inviting so people want to come here. We can't force them to come here. It has to be a free transaction. That's what I want to get to.
Thank you. Ms. Bosworth?
So one of the challenges that we have in the town of North Hempstead is we actually have 31 villages. And the villages are independent. They have their own codes, they have their own businesses, and if you talk about Great Neck has Middle Neck Road. There's one block that's actually in the unincorporated area of the town of North Hempstead. What we have done at the town is we are looking to see what can be done to revitalize our downtowns. We have a plan, we have a cultural master plan, which actually maps out all the different resources that we have in the town, whether it's historical sites, artistic sites, different business sites. We want to find ways for there to be synergy between all the different things that are happening in the town, so that when people come to the town of North Hempstead, they can actually find reason to stay here the whole day. One of the examples that I always think of is the Gold Coast Art Center that has the International Film Festival. So what they found is that when people come to the festival and there are movies in all the different areas in the town, they then go home. We need to find ways to have people come to the festival, tie it into staying at the restaurants, finding other things that they want to do in the town, and also be very, very clear that we are encouraging business, and it's very, very important that we put out the message of the importance of shopping local. Shopping local can't be a message that is just for the Saturday of Thanksgiving. We need to be supporting our businesses. When a business is about to close and says, oh, I can't.
Thank you. All right. What is your position on development of the Macy's property in Manhasset? And then the writer includes, please do not say that you have to wait to see the final proposal. Okay, Ms. Bosworth.
So we all know that Macy's is in fact going to, at some point, submit something to the town. And people may not want to hear it, but you do need to hear what that proposal is. I know that they had, it's Fairfield, so it's not who's representing Macy's. They had put out some information. They were talking about building a mini city. Well, you know, that may sound great, except for the fact that the most important thing is to be listening to what the residents of our town want to see happen. They don't want to see a mini city. We're not Farmingdale. This is not an area that has loads and loads of undeveloped areas, and so that there's the opportunity to just build in these spaces. So one of the things with Macy's is right now it is not zoned for residential. In order for some of what I believe their plans are, that would have to come before the town board because it would require a rezoning. We need to be very certain that before anything happens, we consider what the traffic impact would be, what the impact on our schools would be. These are things that nothing is done in a vacuum. And so the most important thing, I believe, is to be meeting with the communities to see how our communities feel. Whatever the proposal is, when it is actually proposed, there need to be hearings. There needs to be the ability for our public to have comments so that they have a say in what happens.
Thank you. Mr. Redmond.
We largely agree on this issue. We need that investors to come in and develop that land. I think the hearing process, it has to be timely though. We can't, make them run around in circles forever. We'll have a proper process. We'll have the public input and address their concerns. But if the deal happens to fall through, then we got to get someone in there next in line very, very quickly. And the traffic is, when I walk around Port Washington and other areas of North Hempstead, the traffic is a huge issue. So any new development has to address those concerns, has to have a proper study done to see how their density is going to affect the traffic patterns. And you solve that partially by underground parking requirements, have that in place and enforce it, make sure they don't change the plans on you at the last minute. And zoning, as mentioned, has to be, we need to be a little bit more creative, have mixed zoning areas, not too many changes at once that'll affect the property values too quickly. We don't want that. But you have to have room and space for mixed use development and just make sure the density does not go over the limit and have smart, that's what I was talking about before, smart growth and smart development. So it has to be done. We can't be stagnant forever. Long Island's changing. It's always been changing. Nothing's going to stay the same forever. We need to maintain a good solid tax base. So it's just about having a timely process for the developers and our roads are already overburdened. We can't do it anymore.
Thank you. This question was asked of previous candidates, so apparently it's important to some people here. What are you doing to prevent the installation of 5G networks? Because not enough research on the harmful health effects have been completed. All right, Mr. Redmond.
I can speak to this with the electrical engineering academic background. It doesn't have to be rushed out. We have plenty of wireless coverage at the moment. My concern with 5G is you need a lot more of those towers in place because it's a higher frequency, so it travels a shorter distance, so it increases the data transmission speed vastly. But to have it out in general use for the public all over the place, you're going to need many, many more towers than are currently in use just because of the distance issue. So that would be my concern. I think it's fair to have them address the health issues and those concerns because when you have more towers all around in higher densities, it may have some effect on things that we're not aware of at the moment. So I don't think there's any need to rush it. We should be smart in screening for that. But I wouldn't be afraid of new technology either. So we just have to be very, very smart about it and get those questions and answers addressed before they rush into it.
Ms. Bosworth.
So up until now, the FCC has said you can't say that you don't want any kind of cell tower because of health reasons. And up until now, I've been willing to go along with that. 5G is something else. The interval of the modules that are being placed are placed at much closer intervals, and they're also lower. So you can have modules that are placed really right outside someone's second floor bedroom window. A lot of concern has been expressed about the radiation that's emitted from the 5G technology. I think we need to know more about it. There have not been the studies that we need to see in order to ascertain whether or not this is safe. And so I think before going forward with this, those studies need to be done. We have a right as residents living in this community to know what we are being exposed to. When I was down in Washington in June, meeting with our different representatives, I said to them, you need to be going forward with this. You have to say as to what the FCC does. We need you to represent us. People come to me and say, what are you doing? And so this is what I'm doing. I'm advocating with our representatives. And I've said, I'd rather be doing this with you as opposed to doing it against you. But I will tell you that I have serious reservations about the 5G technology that would be needed to make this a possibility.
Thank you. Will you commit to the completion of the RFP and the revitalization of the Port Washington waterfront with resident input? Ms. Bosworth.
So this is a process that we've actually been dealing with for the past 18 months. There's a tremendous commitment to want to make sure that we're not doing anything to impede the shoreline, to make sure that residents will have the sight line to see the water. So much of the character of Port Washington is based on the shoreline, it's based on the water boating. There's great concern that if there's extreme development, that it would be too dense, it would be too high, it would block views. So we have been working very, very carefully to try to find codes that would encourage commercial development, not residential development, and to make sure that we go forward to see what we can do to make sure that that area is revitalized. It's a beautiful area, but we don't want to see it overdeveloped.
Thank you. Mr. Redmond.
Yeah, the top concerns expressed to me from residents in that area were losing their view and the increased traffic, which is already at max threshold. So, but I think you can't block complete development. You have to be open to have something there. I think a lot of builders, they want mixed use, and maybe the first floor is retail shops, and maybe you have 1 or 2 floors of residential. But I would be open to that mixed use of the property as long as the sight lines are maintained. You don't lose too much of it, and obviously it can't go too high and it can't be too dense. But we do need some growth and development in that area.
Thank you. Last question. Many municipalities have experienced ransom malware attacks that compromise citizen data, payroll systems, and 9/11 systems. What steps is the town taking, or would you take, to prevent this threat? Mr. Redmond?
Yes, so we saw recently a number of school districts, and Mineola, there was some confusion over which school districts paid ransoms and which ones didn't. Mineola School District, they actually did it properly. They had segregated networks, so only one network was affected. They had backup data, so they didn't have to pay a ransom. They had the data preserved on a off-site hard drive. So that's how you solve the problem. There's already a plan, there's already a disaster recovery model in place. The town, I don't know where they are on that at the moment. I assume based on other factors, they're probably not that far along. But I'll get in there, I'll audit it, I'll make sure we're up to speed. We'll invest our savings in properly managed projects, and that's a top priority. As we get more things online with the building department and other services to residents, that'll be a top priority to have data security.
Ms. Bosworth.
So we're constantly updating our software. You looked at our agendas, you came to a town board meeting, which, by the way, our town board meetings are live streamed, so that if you're not able to get to the meeting, you can certainly watch it on your whether it's your iPad or your smart device. There's not a meeting that goes by that we're not updating our software. So there are measures in place to ward against this, and so I'm confident that we are doing what we need to do to ward against any kind of situation.
Thank you. And now we'll have closing statements, beginning with Mr. Redmond.
So I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank, when government works in bipartisan fashion, it's at its best. And I would like to thank Senator Chuck Schumer and Congressman Peter King for their work this year on getting also along with comedian Jon Stewart. They all did a great job in getting the bill passed for 9/11 Victim Compensation Fund. It was a very personal issue for me. My father was a 9/11 recovery worker, and I didn't see him after it happened until the next day. And first, we had one of the longest hugs I've ever had with someone before. And after that, I asked him a couple questions. I said, "Dad, did they give you a mask?" He said, "Yes." I said, "Dad, is it a real mask that filters stuff out, not just a dust mask?" He said, "Yes." I said, "Dad, please wear it. You have to wear this." And he did, and fortunately, we've been very lucky. He's at least had no respiratory issues like that. Unfortunately, I was a sophomore in high school at the time. Not everyone got that same memo as we've seen. This was a very difficult year. We've lost a lot of people. We're going to keep losing a lot of people. Not everyone in the rest of the country understands that fact. So our bipartisan leaders got that message across. They got that job done, and I thank them for it. And I tell you the story because I didn't have any experience. I was a sophomore in high school, but I just had this instinctual need to get that message to my father to protect him. And as an elected official, if you put me in office, I will do the same for each and every one of you, even people that may never ever vote for me. I will give you the same concern and care I give to my family each and every day. And I'll do that for you on any issue, large or small. We'll get it done for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Bosworth.
So we had a lot of technical questions, a lot of computer questions. I'd like to just remind everybody about all the wonderful things that are happening in the town of Hempstead. We have the Veterans Advisory Committee, which is comprised of veterans from throughout our town. One of their greatest accomplishments was advocating for a community-based outpatient clinic in North Hempstead. We had, again, Chuck Schumer coming and saying that he supported it, but when he came to support it, he also promised that we would have a medical van coming to serve our residents, and we do. We have a medical van coming to CGM, to the parking lot, 3 times a week, all through the year. One day is for physical therapy, one day is podiatry, one day is for primary care. This is something that is an amazing boost for veterans because now they don't have to travel long distances to get to Northport VA Hospital and get these services right in the backyard. We do amazing services for our seniors. We have Project Independence. North Hempstead was actually cited this past year as being one of the 8 best places to retire to in the entire United States of America. So we're doing many things to make sure that our seniors are able to age in place, that they have services. We're doing concerts. We're doing so many wonderful things for our kids. This, in 2 weeks, don't forget to come to Park Gardens for Spooky Walk. And if you get a little queasy about that on Sunday, not so spooky walk. The idea is we're here for our residents. When people send me emails, I answer every email that I receive. I can say that because I don't have to worry that someone from the audience is going to scream, "Oh, you didn't answer mine," because I do. It's the best way we can stay in touch with the people that we represent is by, number one, going to events, speaking to everybody, hearing their input, and also to make sure that if they get in touch with us, they let us know what their needs are. I'm very honored to be doing this job, and I am hoping that I'll have the opportunity to continue.
Thank you.